Can you see my slide screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Contrast and graphics.
Yeah, thank you. So yes, slide 2. In every word on a page, some words have to always be thicker, bigger, smaller, slanted, anyhow, to just differentiate that this is not part of this text. But with proximity, they are still one. What I mean by proximity is you still must group your elements together to make sure readers and viewers are seeing it the same way, but reading them differently and finding meanings of them differently. So if imagine you buy a book and the header of page 1 is the same as the body text, the same as the footer, I mean, it would even be boring to read. You might just leave it on your table now, and when you come back, if you do not demarcate where you finished or where you left off, you might actually forget what you were reading. Right, so that is why we do contrast. Contrast is very important, and one element around contrast is color. So color, we have space, we have thickness, and font width in general, right? So let us imagine this scenario. We can see that both of these illustrations are very clear. You can see the exclamation mark inside this yellow triangle, showing that there is warning. Imagine there's a warning sign, and this is the exclamation mark inside it. Just imagine. Or imagine we have a coming soon poster like this, and everything on it is still green, like this one. It is even I've seen some designs. Sorry, I've seen some designs like this, and I'll just be like, oh, maybe the designer is just starting up, and maybe they're just getting their feet. So I do not really want to. But then we must preach this often. There's a way we can always show it to people that with hierarchy, with colors, the knowledge of typography, we still need contrast to actually grab attention. Because once you post like this, the idea that you had, all the sketches, all the designing for 4 hours, if contrast is lost, there's no how people will engage on it. And if people do not engage, that seems like a wasted effort. And even behind every sales, all people see is, okay, this is attractive. I see something I want, right? I'm the target audience. I know what I want to do. Do I want to patronize, or do I just want to skip? Or maybe I don't have money now, but I do want to patronize. This is my market. Should I save their post? Should I DM them to ask how much? Should I anything at all? Right? So we have to observe contrast. And now, why contrast actually, like I explained, it is something very related to hierarchy. We have to place hierarchy by the side as well as we are working on contrast, because when you are working on contrast and hierarchy is lost, hierarchy is like you directing the viewer's eyes to what you want them to see first. But then, if what you want them to see first is the same size as what you want them to see secondly, that is very bad. So we use contrast to show people where to look first, right? For eligibility. When there was a time that one of my clients came to me, somebody did a bad design for them, and they said, oh, we have so many customers and we need to post ASAP, so that when they see our post, it was actually about notice. Their app was down, right? And they actually wanted to place a notice out for people to see that it's not like they are delaying their orders, but their backend is malfunctioning, something like that. So I just had to creating a warning post, what people want to see is notice maybe a very striking header. And if your header is striking, the copywriters have worked on copies and giving you creative ideas. You are not putting the text very small. People would see it and just think it is a normal post, but it's not a normal post, right? You have to make everything with intentions on your designs. People must read easily. People must understand the information as quick as possible. Let's look at these two flyers as an example. When you see this flyer, what you see first is the paid ads, right, from the text. So if you are not into ads, you are not into music, you are not into videos, you are not into anything that would actually lead you to doing ads, you have no problem with this flyer. So when you post something like this on IG and people like artisans, musicians, people that actually do some work, some business people that actually sell, they would need to do ads, right? And when they see something like this, they already know they are the target audience. So now they will not be interested in whatever you have to say, right? That's when they will now start reading, okay, let your paid ads bring in real customers, not just views, right? And if they're actually ready, to check your page out, they would do that. They would DM, So this second flyer also, this is in French, but we can grab. I intentionally use this because I didn't want to use something that would, how would I say this? Something that we are related to. So when you see this, you see the FCFA, then blah blah blah, then you see the price, you see the 2,500, right? Then the subtext before you even start seeing all the icons that I placed beside and behind the model. So this is important because you want people to see that they already know your brand. You just want them to see what you are doing at the moment. So I think this is like a subscription for something that is running for 2,500, right? So it is very straightforward. Imagine I wrote the 2,500 FCFA as the same font size, font weight, and same font color as the subtext. It would be very bad. I'll show you an example as we go on. So, okay, sorry. Now, we have types of contrast. Like I said, there are so many things around contrast. We have color contrast, we have size, we have font weight, and we have space contrast. So, these are just examples under them. Color contrast, there are some colors. I would not really want to dive into colors because we are not discussing colors right now. Colors are not the main focus of they are not the main bone of this thing. So we need to actually talk about contrast more without going too deep into each of all of these elements around contrast, because colors, when you check the color wheel, the most contrasting colors are the colors very directly opposite to each other. Absolutely directly opposite. I don't want to, I'm looking for other adjectives I can say that will just qualify, the opposition. If there is no opposition between one color and the other, they are synonymous. There is no fun in that. Even sciences, like charges repel, right? So they are like charges. You cannot put orange on a red background. You already know orange is still the family of red. In fact, purple, because purple is blue and red, you cannot put a purple, a violet on a red background, right? Except for when that purple has another section of white background under it, maybe a shape or something. And you have to even be very creative to do that. There are ways you can combine colors. I don't believe that. There are sometimes I used to preach that whenever you are designing, make sure you are following the 60-40, 60-30-10 rule of colors. There are designers that can even combine up to 10, 15 colors together in a design, and it will still look perfectly fine. So you don't actually have to drool over idea of, oh, I'm limited to just 3 colors. No. Once you start your once you already know the principles, start learning, start practicing. Just open your Photoshop, do a design somebody has done that is very fine, right? And one way you can achieve greatness in all these design principles is when you copy designs. I'm not saying copy and just post like it is your own. Find designers and look at their posts. You can even DM them to ask permission if you can recreate, right, or replicate. Once they give you a go ahead, or maybe you just find some on Pinterest, just copy it. Find a way to see the colors. You start learning the why behind why they choose those colors. And with time, what you are doing with time will actually become an habit. So that is, by the way. Now, size contrast. So can we still see my screen?
Your screen just went off.
Even now? Okay, I think I have to share again.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you still see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, what about now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I was on colors, then back to size. As you can see, large headline. When you read a book, you see a very large headline. We have H1, we have H2. You can use the golden ratio, which is 1.1618, to increase or decrease the font weight. But I don't actually follow that every time, because there are sometimes that the kind of font you are using would not actually support the golden ratio. But if you must, especially when you are doing editorial designs, make sure you are. So if your H1, your header one, that is H1. Your header one is, like, for example, on this page, the header one is types of contrast. The H2 is color contrast. We have 4 H2s here, right? And if I add another subs under all of these headers, I would call them H3. So you can be reducing the font size and font weight by the golden ratio 1.1618. So you just multiply by it, and whatever number it gives you, or divide by it, whatever number it gives you, use it for the second text. And there is a tip to actually using typography to enhance contrast, right? When you are using your header, when your header is bold, you skip one font weight, then go to the next one for your sub header. In a nutshell, if your header is bold or extra bold, if you are extra bold, you skip bold, then you go to semi-bold. If you are on bold, you skip semi-bold, you go to medium. If you are on semi-bold for header, you skip medium, you go to regular, right? That is one tip that everybody should be familiar with. And let me go. Yes, you can now see this page. It is very clear. Now imagine I did this. I mean, even my eyes right now is hurting because a dark blue over a dark background. Explain this to me. And I don't know the kind of taste some clients have. They would actually tell you to use this because it's their brand color, and there's nothing you want to do about it. So I understand that there are some designs that it's inevitable to even follow any design principle. I've been there. But then make sure you are preaching it to them that their colors are bad, they cannot even pair. There's a tool, I've forgotten. There's a tool you can use to compare contrast. You put your both colors, the X codes, then it will give you maybe 50%. If you are above 45%, you are okay. But if you are below 40%, so 40%, 45%, that is way bad contrast. But if you are above 45% to 100%, white over black would always give you 100%. Bright yellow over red will always give you 100%. A black over yellow would always give you maybe up to 90%, right? Light blue over dark blue would give you about 80%. So you are fine with all those colors. So you just have to, have a way to balance them. And it's not only by colors, by spacing. I'll show you some designs as we go. So this is just by the way, vivid difference in colors help elements stand out. That is no doubt. Big means the most important. Small means supporting. It does not mean less important. And when you're doing a editorial design, or maybe you just want to maybe some infographics, there are too many elements already, but you still want to make people understand that this is what we are doing. This is why we have so much text on our flyer. There must be contrast by color and size. When you combine contrast powers, we have all this. We have color, we have spacing, we have size, right? Let's go back up. We have font weight, right? So when you combine all of these four, you have a very good design. When you combine three, you have a good design. When you combine two, you have a fair design. Now let's go to some case studies. We can all see this. I have bright colors as my background. Obviously, this is their brand color. They have red, yellow, and white as their brand colors. So I was even the one that adopted black for them. They always use red every time. It's now looking like Shango's shrine. I was like, there are ways you can actually pass across your message by adding an extra color. So I added an extra color for them, which was, I don't consider black and white a color, but as we all know, in this context, they are colors. So yeah, you can see how these elements interact with the reason why proximity works here, and the reason why other design principles are working is because of contrast. If you saw this design somewhere and it does not grab your attention first, you are not interested in reading whatever they have. Even with hierarchy, if there's no contrast, imagine I did everything on this design and the colors are all yellow or all black. It's only boring people that would actually want to relate with the boring design as well. So that's just by the way. There are ways you can always show contrast. Show contrast by space. Show contrast by, font weight and font size. Show contrast by colors. Examples of brands, big brands that use contrast very well in their designs. McDonald's, they use spacing and colors. Netflix use their red on black background is a very, very good use of colors, right? And they use spacing as well. But one brand that uses spacing very well is Apple. Apple would show you a very big, gigantic picture of their product, and they will now write very small text. So the product itself is the focal point. You see the product, you already know it is Apple. Then you are now interested in reading the text. But it's not every product that can survive like that. Imagine somebody selling pen or selling, or there are some low-end products and just throwing the products up like that, But if you are selling food, people actually want to see that food. Let it attract them. Then you can add your text wherever you want to add them. So we've always cultivated an habit of just putting elements on. I don't think most of my designs have too much elements, but I've always seen designs that will just
I
have
can't
too
see
much.
your screen anymore.
Okay, let me know when it's back on.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So yes, as I was saying, we've always seen people, just throwing designs. I would see some designs, it will have blue background, it will still have black text. Some designs are actually trendy. When you see a design, it trends because that's like the trending style. People just want to do what other people are doing. But at the same time, let us put ourselves in our clients' shoes, right? At the end of the day, we are collecting money from them. We are giving them our service. And if you are rendering our service and we are just doing it anyhow without even thinking about principles, it is still the same us that will say we want Microsoft to hire us. Is this what you are going to present as your portfolio? If Google wants to hire a UI UX designer, they eventually maybe turn them later to tutors. I've seen it on their Coursera courses. They always start off like interns, then they go to. So before Google even accept somebody as a designer, they would have seen a prospect that you might one day become our tutor, our lead designer, our stuff like that, right? And I used to follow some designers outside the country. There's this guy that I used to design for EA Sports. He goes to work, designs, and when you see the design, you think they are basic, but they are not, because what he's doing, most designers don't understand it. They don't have a color scheme as such, because sports, there are so many colors in sports. Yeah, they are not just limited to two brand colors. So he makes sure he uses very high contrasting colors and just drop it on a very dark background. Place image, make sure the image is very clean and sharp, and it just gives them to go and post. That is the design for the day. But most designers just want to draw these cool effects that even when people see it, some of us are not
Your
actually.
screen is not back yet.
Oh, sorry about that. My laptop is sleeping, so is it back on? I'm back, right? Hello.
Yes, I can see.
Okay. Just let me know if it goes off again. Thank you. So let's move on to the next slide. This another set of designs. You can see how I'm using shape as a contrast here. I'm telling the audience that whatever is outside this circle, they are all supporting whatever is inside the circle. So when you see this design, you go straight to inside that circle, like you have a treasure waiting for you there. You would ignore all other things. Even this building, you might ignore it to just go straight to so you see the Eid Mubarak. That's the main message. In fact, if you are not reading anything again, you've known that they've communicated their own message. It's now in your hands to say, okay, you want to read further or read their footer, right? And even in that same circle again, there is contrast between the header and the subtext. The H1 here is aid. You can actually group the H1 and H2 together. But let's say this aid is the main, character. Then this Mubarak is like H2. Then you can have the subtext. Before you even start seeing the background as supporting element, the image as supporting, even ESF, the image is not the focal point. But let's look at the predictor, this first design. Yeah. Sports designs have good contrast because they want you to be glued. They want you to see everything. That is why on the pitch, you see green as the pitch. Then there are so many colors. They could be red and yellow playing together. And when you see it, it's not only what they are doing that is keeping you glued. It's the color psychology. You are seeing ads and seeing all of these things. MTN is yellow. When you see MTN, you already know this is MTN. So when they now, do their adverts, and the yellow you are seeing, there's another yellow on top of it as text. You know this is not MTN, because by their standard, black is their, text. So you already know the MTN contrast by head, right? And seeing some designs like this, you already know Happy New Month is what you are seeing on this one at the center. The one at the far right, you are seeing, Fresh Month in that box. So imagine I just put everything together, same size, same color, same. It will just be boring. Though there are some designs that actually warrant us to, put text together like this, like the same color, same font weight and font size, right? But let us never forget that contrast is just like you comparing two things, in contrast. This must be different to this, because design is separate. Design is one thing. You design so many things to bring into one picture. That is design. So now if you are overlaying stuff over one another, and those things are not either big or small compared to the one below, or either changing in color from adversity. You can say maybe green to yellow, white to black, so many things, but it is way beyond just monochromes, right? There are so many ways you can achieve contrast. In fact, I can use a gray text on a very dark background and my design will still look great, because I would do some things that would actually make you want to read that text at the top, and that is also contrast. Moving on. Yeah, so these are just cases of color usage. It starts from actually the background, the text, colors, the elements you are using, and I would not want to mention other principles, because we've learned that in the previous classes. So this is solely based on contrast, and remember, color contrast is the first, then space contrast, we have weight, right? We have size. Let's go on. Okay, common mistakes I see most designers make is they make everything just big and bold. They make all their text same size, poor color combinations, too many competing elements. This is also important. A bunch of elements are not even needed on your design, except for when your client requests for it. They have a final say yes. But when you are doing your design, you just do not want to, because at the end of the day, you put designs on your portfolio, and when that your present client goes and another one wants to come and they see whatever you did for the last person, it is just going to be like, I would have, done things better if I knew. Right. So it is very important to always know what we are doing when we want to implement design principles. When you do your hierarchy, you already know the big text is staying where you need it to stay. You are doing your when we have other elements in your design, you have model, you have the text, you have the footer, you have the CTA, and everything is just looking very weird, right? You do not want to bore out your viewers. Chase me away. You want to make them feel at home. Then they see the design, they interact. Now let's do this, and I would actually want us to vote. Let's make it kind of interactive. Let's vote in the chat. Let's see which design wins. These are two same designs that have the same copies in them. The only difference is what we are seeing. So let's go very quickly. Let's see what we have. Let's see A or B very quickly. Let's see. I'm reading the chart, so are we voting? A or B? Let me show you again. Thank you for the poll. Let's vote. Oh, let's see which design wins. Design A or design B? They are similar by content, but they are not similar by look. Okay, I'll choose mine. I think so I can see other votes as well. Oh, okay, we have 4 votes on B and we have 1 vote on A. Okay, this is like 90 to 10%. All right, so let's say let's say A is correct. Let's just assume A is correct assumption, right? If A is correct, because the Infinity Gauntlet white party is, attractive to the eyes, we see it once we open this page. What happens to the subtext? This design is bad. It will not retain. It would attract, but it will not retain. It would actually attract, but it will not retain. Attraction only takes 1 second. Retention is okay. Even if the app refreshes itself, I still remember what I saw. Right. And this is just looking, the contrast here is not given in relation to these 2 texts. Now we have 7 to 2 votes. I think we are good now. But the design that actually wins here is B. If you chose B, you won. So let's see why B is winning. Now we have the Infinity Gauntlet white party. When contrast is beyond, how would I explain this? Contrast is beyond just throwing colors, throwing big sizes, right? You want to do something that is very distinctive to the most important parts of your design, that it would make it very different. Let me say that again. It would make it very different to its similar party. In this case, Infinity Gauntlet white party is a O, that is the header. That is the H1. You cannot separate H1. This design B is still showing you the H1, but part of the H1 is telling us that read me first, read me first, read me first. Right? So when you see a design like this, you see that it is a party. Of course, everybody loves parties. Now you want to see what the party is about. That's when, of course, your eyes have already seen the Infinity Gauntlet white party. I think I'm off again. Of course, your eyes have already seen the Infinity white party, but this party here has, grabbed your attention from others. It's like it snatched you away from them. You are still coming back to them, but you are glued to it first within that 1 to 3 seconds. So those 3 seconds are just like for you to feel at home. Now you see a party. Even if somebody who never attends a party sees a flyer like this, they are interested in what they want to see, except for when their mood is, their designs cannot actually survive too much moods. Let's not lie, there are some designs that you will do very appealing, very good, but if the audience are in no good mood to view it, is it going to retain, that, I don't know. But you have to actually, communicate the most important parts by contrast. Make sure your designs, your elements are different while still in the same box, in the same frame of design. You want to make, let's say we have this text and another text, then you have a model. I didn't actually have time to make this a full flyer, that's why. If you had a model here, or maybe the pool party where people are wearing white, and that image is very catchy, that means they will see the image first, they will relate to it, this is a party, then they see this party, right? But in this case, there is no image, there is nothing, but design B still survives because of one thing. In fact, design B, the footer for design B is smaller than the ones of footer A, but it is still readable. That's the point of contrast. Two different entities beside each other should not have similar characteristics, right? The footer here must never carry the same font weight as the H1. the subtext must never carry the same. Imagine I wrote this part in blue and I wrote this subtext, this join the design Avengers. I wrote it in blue also. There is chaos already. And this is not the only color I'll be using on this flyer at the end of the day. So that's the point. Now, my final take. Let's just reason this together. Even fried rice observes contrasts, right? When you say a bowl of rice, a cup of, a plate of rice, you are seeing the chicken, except when there's no chicken. You are seeing the chicken first before you even start seeing if, oh, I don't eat onions. Let me see if I can have onions to pick out. Before you even find your onions, you've seen or even finished eating the chicken. So this is, contrast. Imagine the chicken also tastes like rice, also tastes like the soy. I don't know, is this corn? Yeah, the corn, the green beans, the carrots. We would not even feel anything for chicken because we know that it tastes like rice. So why am I bothered, right? But you should always emphasize the need for people to, once they see something, you must emphasize the need for them to separate their minds for a second, a split seconds, to read something first, because this is kind of distinctive than other texts, right? This element by shape, we have a triangle, we have a circle. By nature of people are more familiar with circle than triangles. But because triangles are irregular than circles, people tend to look at the triangle before looking at the circle. So people's eyes are the first target. Once they see a post, so just make sure that the design you are doing, right, you are not, number one, you are not adding too much on it. Because when there is too much info, it annoys people. People don't want to read anymore. They just want to see something. So give them what they want to see actually. Point it out with color, with spacing. Make sure there is white space. Apple does this a lot. Apple would give you a very big element, right? Maybe their phone image or just the background. And then the footer, or maybe just their H1 would even be very small, in fact. So, just like I said here, you see the chicken before you even notice the green peppers and carrots. Yeah, that is fact. So that is just contrast. Contrast is way beyond putting just, your red text on white, collecting brand guide, making sure you have their blue on a white color, or maybe bright yellow on dark yellow, or dark background. It is way more than that. You can create contrast in fact, you can even create contrast with different typography, font types, typefaces. When you have a different typeface, you can redirect the viewer's eyes to see that typeface first before they read the regular ones. So imagine for this page, I have okay, this is what I did here. In fact, this party here carries a distinct, I could have just written it with the same. I think I used Montserrat for this. I could have just used Montserrat for this as well. Then when I use Montserrat, I would just change the party, just like this one. I'll change the party here to blue. Then other text will be black. It will still be, that is me adopting just one element from our contrast under the design principles. But if I change the font type, the typeface of this party, it gives it more aura. It increases the aura from 100 to like 1000. So this is what I'm not saying you should go away from your brand guide, from the brands you are working with, or maybe the guide you have on your design. No, but there are still ways by which if you cannot combine 3, you can combine 2. The minimum is 2. If you can combine all the 4, why not? Because most designs that I have here, they are just like that. You do not actually have to do so much on the designs. Let's see which one. Yeah, let's go to this. Yeah, you don't actually have to do too much. Just make sure the text on your design is readable. the model on your design is very glaring, very clear to see. Not like they also have yellow shirt, yellow face. There's nothing in contrast between them. They are all similar. You can compare them by colors, compare them by sizes, right? And nothing compares to white space. Let me tell you, white space should be the. In fact, I think it is very underrated because when you look at this design, the white space carries about, let's say, 55 to 60% of the total design. And white space does not mean white or color white. No, it means the free space around your elements. It means, you see, all these spaces between the logo, between the model and the second model, between the footer, around here at the background, and around the footer also, those are white spaces. So if the white space does not carry enough weight on the total, on the totality of your design, number one, that design might crush. I don't say it would actually crush, but it might crush. Then you can survive it by other things, other elements, as we said, by colors, size, font weight, and typeface changing. When you change the typeface, you are telling us that, okay, this is also important. Yes. When you make something very big, like let me show you a flyer. It should be around here. Yes. Now let's see this flyer together. Let me minimize this one. See all the text I have on this flyer. I did this, I think, day before yesterday. There are so much. Like when I saw the brief, I was like, people have to just see, what is this? What am I seeing? I even wanted to ask the client, are we putting all of this text like this on the design? They say yes. I said, okay. On my book, I used to just sketch and write whatever comes to my mind. I was like, there's a way, because they wanted to show the riders and the vendors. There's a way we can combine them. There's a way I could have even done it that the vendor would stay beside the rider. But that is like wasting my space. Why not just put them, I made it like a section. So the contrast here is based solely on size. In fact, color, well, we can say color because I changed the color to red instead of the black I was using initially. Right. But if their color was just pure black, I'll just stick to promoting my contrast on this design. Aside all other design principles, promoting my contrast to just size. So the sizes of my elements would be very different. That's one. My white space is very important. Even on this section that we have here, on this section, the white spaces, how can I not zoom? On this section, this white join talk shop here and the grow with talk shop today, these sections, they were so much. I had to even, but it was going to be a print flyer, so they are going to print it, and I knew that people would actually enjoy seeing this flyer like this than me just listing it out one by one like a bullet on a note. This is why we design. We design to make sure wherever we have is readable and enjoyable by people. In fact, if you place this design on your wall in the house, somebody's going to fight you for it. But imagine you post a design, you collect the flyer, you just give it to somebody, and it's just looking somehow. There's no way, except you are giving it to old people that do not actually understand things like this. But if you're appealing to Gen Zs, appealing to people between the age bracket of 20, 45, 50, you don't want to mess up. So you just must understand that aside my proximity, my hierarchy, my all other design principles, I am adopting contrast as well, right? If contrast is lost, there is something they would say about seeing your design within 3 seconds and they will never remember it again. Even if they survive that 3 seconds, they will not even remember to to, tell somebody, or maybe when they see it again. It is very bad when, in fact, if somebody tells you that I saw your design and they are still asking, is this the same design I saw? Because they cannot remember anything on the design, right? If somebody sees your design within 3 minutes, 3 seconds, it's not possible for them to scan everything through. That one is not possible. But there are some things that they will remember. They will remember your H1, if at all. They will remember your H1, your header one. They will remember your model, the model you used. They will remember the kind of background. That's what people will remember. If I close this now and I show you another design, you definitely know that, oh, this is not the design we saw. It's because something worked on those designs that I showed you earlier. If all of those things did not work, there's absolutely no sense in it at all. It's just like you not even doing the design from start. So when you have alignment, when you have hierarchy, when you observe your color spacing, all of these things, you are obeying the rule of contrast already. You just have to apply them accordingly. Because when you do alignment, I observed alignment here very well. I sectioned my elements, my icons, my text, my H1, my model. They are all well aligned, even my footer. There are equal spaces everywhere in the sections where we are now onboarding, join talk show, blah, blah, blah. All of these things, very equal. Hierarchy, you already know that priorities of ranking, you read the H1 first. That's why I said hierarchy and contrast go hand to hand. You read H1 first, you read H2, then you read the subtext, right? When you now see colors, as another principle of design, we've talked about the spacing. Yeah, spacing also. You can see all these spacings here. They are, very well. You can see it's because of the alignment also, but then we have spacing. We have typography. I did not just throw bunches of typefaces all in your face, and you are just seeing just too many kind of text that are not even similar to each other. This is design. This is why we call it design. You are bringing so many things together without separating them. You are not separating them. You are just prioritizing some things over another. So if you read H1 correctly, you read H2. In fact, the next thing I want you to read is not this subtext, is the why join talk show, because by the time you start reading the subtext, you are tired. What we actually want to communicate is, why should you join this platform? And we are now onboarding this kind of people. Then you can now, in your leisure time, you can now take your time to read the subtext. Subtext are just supporting. Subtext are, even when people start reading your flyers, they read the H1. It is just some people that are actually, interested in reading your subtext, or maybe when it is bold, yeah. But if it's tiny, you are just telling them that skip this, please. Go to my services, or from the services, go to our menu. From the menu, go to footer before you now come back to this. So something like this. I did an illustration on my last page here. Yeah. Let's imagine this. We have this top right corner here. I look at the top right corner. This is like directing my eyes. I see this. Look far left. I look far left. Now check the bottom right corner. I'm checking. Why didn't I first check the thanks for listening? It's because I did not prioritize it. And it is in contrast with the most, how do I say this? It is the nearest element to it is the background. The nearest element to any element you have on your design is your background. If your background is not in contrast with the element, that part has failed. But if you can correct that part and make sure your element at the top is in contrast, that means people can separate it by color, by size, by shape, that this is yellow on this white background. This is a shape, and it's not even distorting to the eyes, because you can see some colors, you can vividly see them on the background, but they are distorting, very distorting to the eyes. When you see them, your eyes ache. So you want to make sure it is legible for people to see, especially for text. Then for the text, I can actually do effects on this text too, very cool ones, in fact. But then it will still maintain the contrast I want it to maintain. Then when you see this, you go to the next element. The next element is what I'm saying. Look far left. When I look far left, these are those same colors, but you can see their sizes are very different, right? Then, like I said, the nearest element to your important message is the background. The second nearest one is the nearest element to it, either by location or by you can say proximity is location, right? So I have this top right corner. I have my thanks for listening. I have look far left, and I have this text. Now, if I want to just showing it to anybody, what they are going to see first is the top right corner. You've already observed hierarchy, but the hierarchy only works because this is in contrast. So even if you are saying this is what I want people to see, okay, by hierarchy, but if it does not bring color in place, assuming I use a very light gray that is almost turning into white or off-white, it will look somehow very bad, right? That is what we are saying. You use colors, you use spacing, you use typography, you use font width. You combine them if you must. If you cannot, combine at least 2 or 3. I think I'll rest my case now for the admins to share their ideas and let's have questions. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you to Jayphics. Can we appreciate Jayphics one more time? Like, his session was packed, and I'm sure we learned 1 or 2 things tonight. So if you're attentive during this session, can you drop your favorite emoji in the chat? Thank you so much, Jayphics, once again. And also, one thing I loved about today's, okay, I can see a Kenya's emoji. One thing I loved about today's session was how he distinctly talked about color contrast, size contrast, font weight contrast. Then he also talked about space contrast, all under type of contrasts, and he broke them down and explained them very well to us. So let's not forget once again to tag us to your posts, then you react to our post, and also you can check our YouTube channel for the uploaded session of tonight. We're already like
one more thing I listened to today is when he was talking about the color contrast, he mentioned something about certain colors that you should not use. So I have a question though. I know other people also have questions. Jayphics, you mentioned something about certain colors you should not use. But what if we are trying to paint a picture, or we're trying to sell a taste? Let's say, for example, spiciness or saltiness, or we're trying to sell nature, you know, or all these type of colors come with us using similar shades of the same, and we still have to make sure that it is contrasting enough and standing out enough. Let's say I want to sell spiciness, for example. I want to make a design for Gino, or let's say I want to offer like stew or pepper stew. You know, this now is going to be like red, shade of red, orange, yellow. No, I have to mix everything together. So how can we approach this kind of designs and still make sure that it is contrasting enough?
Okay, I understand your point. You know, let's see this design. Let's imagine we have like a chili kind of, advert, chili sauce advert. And of course, you are using hot colors. These are hot colors. But remember I mentioned the color wheel, right? There's a way on our color wheel you can combine colors that are similar, right, on the spectrum. Once you combine colors that are similar, there are ways that you can make them look very distinct, either by adding strokes to one. You can even place a red text on a red background. But when you have a white stroke that looks, okay, that makes sense, your design would work because there's something separating those two entities now, which is the white stroke. And again, there's a way we can also make sure our background is very distinctive to the text in this case. I forgot to mention textures. There's a way the texture you use, maybe noise, grungy texture, all of these plastic texture, holograms on the background. You are still seeing blue. People are still seeing red, right? But because you've added texture, you are telling us that this is a surface. If you add a wooden texture, that means you have a wooden surface at the background of whatever you are designing. And now you have a smoother text on top of it, which is telling you that, okay, this is not part of the background. This is an elevated something. And if it is elevated and smooth, that means it would have a shadow. That shadow would be realistic enough to now separate it from the background. And also, some designs like for the Dangote groups, I've only seen their salt designs, white and blue, right? But when you check the designs, they have noise backgrounds. And noise and salt go hand in hand because when you pour salt on the ground, you are seeing noise. They are granules, right? And when you make a noise textured background, it also looks like granules. So combining those two elements, the background, which is very grungy and textured, right? You are putting the salt on it, then you are writing any text you want to write. Now, you cannot write text that are similar to your background again. If you are using a text that is now grungy or looks like all this hand brush to communicate that idea of sale, it is very wrong because now you have texture on your background, you have texture on your text. Your text and background are almost the same color, maybe just a slight change in hue or saturation. And you're not saying this is no, that's not contrast. But when you make a smooth text or a smooth element, any shape, any flying elements, any all of these extras that we put on our designs, they must be smoother than, except for when you finish designing and you have observed your contrast, observed your hierarchy, alignment, spacing, colors, everything. Then you now want to put a texture on all of them. That one is different. At least you've observed all the principles. You just want to play around. That one is different. But in this case, when you are promoting a chili design and they have all these hot colors, of course, you can create depth by shadow. You can create depth by applying your noise background. That way, people would see the background differently than the texts and the image used. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you answered that question. So I have another angle to this. You you were taking when you were showing us your screen, you showed us something like black and dark blue. Like there are some brands that have that colors. I've come across one or two of them, and if we keep talking to them about the colors are not good enough, that we should use another color, and they insist we use the brand colors. How do we maneuver around that? How can we make sure that we use these brand colors and still make sure that the design meets a particular standard without clashing these two ideas?
Okay, that's where shapes now come in. That's where you can apply shapes because now that you have a blue text over black background, if there is a shape around that your blue text, you've already communicated that this is important. Even when the colors are bad, there's a way you can still manage it. It will not look as good as you designing it with brighter colors, but it will still tell people that yes, I want to show you this thing first, this thing in the in my shape, in my circle, in my rectangle first, before you now start reading the ones outside of the rectangle. And you'd also observe size. If there is a design and the white text, I mean the main text is blue over black, and you want to show focus, you can make it way bigger so that even when people are seeing the distortion in their eyes, at least something is compensating for it. It is big. Then other subtext can now follow and your other elements. But I would still consider it not good enough. It might be fair design, but like I said, when you are combining all the 4 or 5 as much as you can elements around color contrasts and you combine them nicely, you already have a very good design. When you combine 3, you have a good design. When you combine 2, you have a fair design. If you now combine 1, there's no combination there. If you are using only 1, I don't know what I'll call that, but it is not a good design. That's the irony. That's just the truth. But then you can still manage and maneuver by making the text very big or testing them if they would succumb to using some cool effects. If you add cool effects for some clients, they will eat that. In fact, they will even forget that you were doing something, in their own will before. They will see that as something cool. They will not even see their colors again. So when you show them that cool effect, they might see it. You can double your text. You change the color of the one at the top to something bright. You invert it, then you reveal some parts of it that will make it now brighter. So that part is very catchy. Not like you are changing the color of the text entirely, but that part that you added just a glow to is catchy. And when you add a glow to it, you add a glow to your background at the maybe top left or bottom left. You are showing it that this design, there's lights coming from this side. So people are focused on that side. Now that focus is like an illusion, making them to read the text that you have beside whatever you have there. Or you place an element that there's no how. That is the color of that element. So if you are working with a design that says caution, you can use a caution sign. You cannot change caution sign from yellow to blue. It's not possible. So even when your client sees that caution sign, they know that this is caution. And that yellow text, that yellow caution sign would now make people want to read what is beside the yellow caution sign, even if it's not bright enough to see. And in cases where you cannot use that element to direct focuses of people to that particular text, you can use size, make it very big, use strokes. You cannot even use shadow again because shadow is also dark. It will just add to the disaster, right? But in a plain language, it is not a very good design. You can just keep managing them and giving them what they want just to satisfy them.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Someone dropped a question in the chat. Let me read it out. A client wants a design, but their model image is not nice, bad quality, or the image is not at the right pose. How can you make this work?
Read that second line again.
Their model image is not nice. It has a bad quality, or the image is not at the right pose. How can you make this work?
Okay. Communication is very important. There are some, in fact, I just had one case yesterday. They wanted to design something African, and I used models of, AI models. You're not going to go on Free Pick and just miraculously see models wearing Igbo dress, Benin dress, all these attires of Hausa people. You cannot see. You can only generate them with AI, except when you are stealing other photographers' pictures from IG, and that is very bad. So when I asked them, I said, can I use this message, these images? They said no. And I asked them, do you have images? They sent me the file. Those images were so boring. They are low quality, but I knew I could, find my way around the low quality because we have AI, right? AI would not, there's a way you can prompt Flow. That Flow will just give you the exact same image, but now with enhanced quality. It's like we are upscaling it. So I could still work around that. We went over it, back and forth. But there's one thing about clients. Once you establish yourself, that's why it's important for designers to establish their own personal brand. Once you have your foot and they see that your page is growing, you are posting clients' works, they would just agree to whatever you tell them. It is when even you are not posting anything in your post, you are not doing anything related to that shows that you are growing. It's only them that you are doing all year long. They will see you as somebody they can actually just control the mouse for. So they are now literally controlling your mouse. Make this, make that. They are not giving you your own opinion, and they hired you as a designer. So the question here is, what should you do in case of just use it like that? There are some ways that you can actually apply, but I think this is brutalism in design. You just make the image very either black and white, you add so much grunge, you make it very sharp, then there's this thing we add a paper texture on it, on the image. But in cases where, that is just a flat design now, you cannot use a flat design. They have to see that this is a real image. Use it for them. Now, do your own with an enhanced image that you generated. Make sure the enhanced image is very clear, very sharp, and looking exactly as the other one. There is a way you can prompt your Flow AI to give you that, or Nano Banana. So once you have that and you show them this is A, what you requested for, this is B, what I did. Once they see both designs and they see that both designs have the same elements, nothing is changing. The only thing that is changing now is the images. They will now see the reasoning behind what you've been trying to tell them. And if at the course of that they still do not see anything, just keep giving them what they want. Give it to them like that. They already know what they are going to get. So just try your own best. Make sure you just add some sharpness, add some, crop it very well, crop the picture very well, relate it to the background, change the tone, change. If you are using a blue background and the picture was taken under a hot sun, you already know you are going to reduce the red. You already know you are going to reduce the yellow on it to make it, synonymous to at least the environment. Then you can now add your shadows, your curves to show that, okay, there are some parts that are brighter than others. So that way, at least you've observed. The only thing that will now have a something to talk about will be the model, not other elements like your text and footers. So make sure you do your own part on that. Then when you show it to them and they still do not want to use the one you did for them with your own enthusiasm, just keep giving them what they want like that. That's just how some clients are.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let us give one up for our speaker once again.